and he's now, he graduated in May, so it was a little over a year ago, with honors. He enrolled into the military. So he's an officer in the military in electrical engineering. And it was funny because about a month ago, I guess because of COVID and all of the stuff that they were going through in the military, that we lost contact. But he texted me about a month ago and said, "I'm just checking in. I'm doing fine. I'm just checking in." And he gave me his new contact information. So we kind of keep in contact. So that was the most impactful thing. And it falls right along the lines of your program, the STEM program, because he is an electrical engineer in the military now. So.
Okay, everybody, so we're back for another episode of the ACP Automation Adventure podcast. Today, we have the DeKalb County Juvenile Court System, the Probation Division. We have Ms. Shunda Dean, who's the Chief Probation Officer, and then we have Yohance Benton, who's the Principal Probation Officer. How are you all doing today?
Great.
Doing great.
That's so good. You guys look great during this quarantine season. Well, if you all don't mind, I'd love for you all to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your positions and your responsibilities.
My name is Shunda Dean. I am the Chief Probation Officer of DeKalb Juvenile Court. I am actually responsible for three units, which include school-based probation officers, court-based probation officers, specialized units. So basically we supervise youth that have been adjudicated and placed on probation for anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. It just depends on the charges. And Mr. Benton here is, like I said, one of my principals. So he works very closely with me as we try to rehabilitate these children.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Yohance, do you have anything to introduce? I know she gave a nice overview also of what you do, but if you want to add, that's fine as well.
Yohance Benton, DeKalb Juvenile Court, Principal Probation Officer. I am a part of the school-based unit, but also, so I have a caseload. My caseload is somewhat specialized because I have juveniles who are in a special school. They have mental illness. Also, I am placed over the counseling department within the probation department. So I oversee to make sure that we receive, or the counseling departments that are contracted through the juvenile court receive the referrals and anything that they need. And also I do anything that Chief Dean has me to do.
And this is interesting because I want to know how many students would you all sort of oversee at a time, or how many students would be in each of these individualized units?
How many kids you said?
Mm-hmm.
How many kids?
Yeah, about how many kids?
Overall, probably about maybe 400.
On average, a lot of children that you all will work with at a time, or what would sort of be like a good amount of students that you all would be able to assist?
Average, over the past couple of years, we would say probably about 800 total average. It has gone down, like I say, since COVID. But you're looking at overall caseload. We try to keep them within probably 25 to 30 cases each, which is pretty manageable. Anything higher than that, it gets a little tricky. So it's based on staffing. They are assigned based on the schools. So we try to balance it out as much as we can so that the numbers kind of balance, so that, one PO is not supervising 50 and one has 20.
Absolutely. And the PO, that's probation officers.
That is correct.
Okay, wonderful. I'm telling you, I'm about to get all the terminology together today. So this is great. This is great. Tell us a little bit about the vision and the mission of DeKalb County Juvenile Court System.
The mission of the court is to protect the best interests of the child and the community, to restore the lives of children who have been neglected or abused, to redirect children who have admitted to or have been found in violation of the law, to become law-abiding, productive citizens, and to support the continuity of families by leaving the children in their homes, whenever we can. The objective is always to try to leave them in their homes and work with them.
I was going to say, I think the thing that stood out to me most about this vision is the restoration portion of it. That's so key in helping these the youth and getting back to a pathway that's really beneficial for them and their futures, as well as the community. So what services, what would you all do specifically in assisting these youth, and what services you all provide, or how you all work with the community to complete this mission?
We have the probation department actually has a lot of services that we do offer our families, and those are probated youth as well as non-probated youth. So the youth that has come through the court system, and then the youth that just are in the community that families need help. So we have counseling. Of course, we offer counseling. We have several different classes, for anything from drug classes to decision-making classes. We have shoplifting classes. We have classes that cover an array a lot of things that families within the communities have issues with, or that children may need redirection from. So we have those classes. We have programs we have one special program within the probation department, which is Rebound, which is a drug court program. So those juveniles who are having issues with substance abuse, we place them in this program so they can receive and kind of like intensive supervision, but it's a community effort. So it's not just them being placed on probation and receiving counseling. It's them being placed on probation, receiving counseling, receiving other different type of classes and community-based organizations that work with the court that try to help the child make better decisions and try to help the child wean off of those substances that they may have issues with. We have CHINS classes. We have classes for parents. So not just to redirect the child, but also to redirect the parents' thinking. So we have, we offer all of those classes, which, like I say, help the community, but also help the child that's on probation, or in some cases that are not on probation.
Absolutely, because the key there is to truly help a child is to also help the child's environment. So that's awesome that you all have those all-inclusive services and resources for, as you said, the community, the parents, and the child. I'm wondering, with the community, what organizations or other companies within the community do you all partner with?
Several different churches. We have, to name them, it would be difficult, but we have several different organizations, anywhere from the fraternity and sorority organizations, to churches, to just community organizations in general. Anywhere from, like, in the past, we've had food banks, to just, of course, counseling organizations. And it's just kind of like any organization that presents itself to the court that wants to assist with any type of problems or issues that we may face as probation officers or as public servants, to help the families that we come across. So it could be anywhere from a parenting class that's not directly associated with the court, but see that there's a need. So we get contacted all of the time from organizations that want to help. I mean, we've had everything from a chest club to um, to even colleges reaching out with literacy programs and things of that nature. So it varies from time to time. And of course, since we're in the COVID era, we haven't. It's not as big as it normally is, but it can be pretty extensive. And a lot of times during the summer, we have different organizations that come in that teaches classes, anything from sex education to just how to deal with everyday life situations. So we've partnered, even with the DeKalb County Jail, who's taught classes. So it varies, but it's a lot of organizations.
I think
And
you
just kind of to piggyback off of Candace, off of Yohance, just kind of outside the box a little bit, because when we're talking about kids, we want them also exposed to something that they're not used to. Even when Mr. Benton, he's talking about the chess, we talk about mindfulness, which is the yoga. You know, a lot of these times these kids, like, they didn't want to do any yoga, but once they get involved and come, they really enjoy it. The parents, their siblings. Retired NFL has also partnered, just trying to redirect the kids, have them make better choices. Equine Therapy, which is something else that's different, with working with the horses. It's very good sometimes to see the youth interact with horses. They're really large animals, and then you have to learn how to actually work with certain animals. So we try to expose them to what they normally would not receive in their homes, as well as the parents, and encouraging them, hey, do a lot more things together. Have a picnic, when the last time you have a picnic, just various things to just try to motivate them as we're working with them.
That's wonderful. And I think what we were talking about, exposure, that is so key in that redirection, in that restoration process that we were talking about, restoring the youth's lives. Thank you guys so much for this first section. We discussed sort of you all's roles and responsibilities, how you all oversee 3 various units within the probation division, the school-based unit, the court-based unit, as well as other specialized units, how you all work closely together with other organizations in order to continue to expose these kids to new experiences from various church organizations, fraternities, sororities, having food banks, and even seeing the youth work with horses, as well as chess clubs, colleges, the list goes on. It's wonderful to hear how deeply involved the DeKalb County community is in assisting you all in helping these juveniles and the youth. And also we discussed the mission and the vision. And one of the most impactful parts to me of this vision, again, is not just assisting the child, but overall providing and protecting the best interests of the community, the overall community. So what we're going to do is just take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. Okay. So we are back, and we have Ms. Shunda Dean, the Chief Probation Officer, as well as Yohance Benton, who's a Principal Probation Officer. And they just spoke with us and gave us some great information about the services and the different organizations that DeKalb County Juvenile Court System is working with in order to help restore the lives of the youth. And now some of these services, we discussed them, what you all offer, but I'm wondering which of these services or other programs that you all offer help to assist and support STEM education.
I guess we could start with the commitment alternative program, Yohance, a little bit, because that particular population is on probation, and it could be for serious felony charges. But we tend to work with them on probation versus committing them, meaning committed them to the Department of Juvenile Justice, whether it be 2 years or up to 5 years. The objective in that is to come up with a case plan, whether it's like homeschool community, all encompass of what can we do to meet the needs of these families. So we're looking at it from every angle, with the family, the siblings, and everybody. Education wise, we're looking at their grades, we're pulling their transcripts, we're meeting with the counselors, and really honestly trying to come up with the best fit. Because granted, a lot of them are failing in school. So we tend to try to focus on what is it that they want? What is it that they want from school? What is your direction you want to go in? Everybody may not be necessarily good at math, but you may be good at, your hands. Auto mechanics. We've had a lot of kids to go into that direction because they are good with their hands. With woodwork. Because I remember myself growing up in high school, those were options for students that may not have been just great, academically, but they were good with their hands. So we do focus on that with the CAP program, also with drug court as well, because we still do a full assessment of those kids and try to meet whatever need or gap they have in their lives. Yohance, you can chime in anytime. That's cool.
And with just general probation, not with the CAP or the Commitment Alternative Program and the Rebound, we as probation officers that are in the school, a lot of times we have to intervene because the parents are sometimes not available or not as easily accessible to come up to the school as we are. So we have to meet with the counselors and we have to meet with the school staff to try to say, okay, if this young man or this young lady is failing in these classes or not progressing in this area, we try to be creative and come up with different things as in the technology realm to see, okay, how can we continue to educate this kid, keep this kid stimulated, because if we keep this kid stimulated, then we can help keep them out of trouble. So there are times when we have to, of course, we have to get special permission to access like things like Chromebooks or things or technology things that will put this child in a different environment, but still in the learning environment to try to, of course, continue to redirect the behavior, but also to improve the behavior. So if they are engaged with certain technology things, they are fully concentrated on what they're doing and not really with, I'll say, the general population and getting into trouble. So there are times when we as probation officers, we have to, our chief always challenges us to think outside of the box. There is no answer. Basically, there is no to any answer. She's not accepting no to any answer. So it's like, okay, what else can you do? What else can you do? No. What else can you do? There's something that we can do. And she always says, there's something that can be done. And we as probation officers have to think outside of the box. We have to be creative. And so a lot of times that leads us back to the school, back to us advocating for our families and for our children. Like, look, we need X, Y, and Z to help this child. If this child is expressing an interest in technology, then let's try to foster that. If this child is expressing an interest in math, let's try to foster that. If this child is expressing an interest in engineering, we have to foster that. And that has even resulted in us placing children inside of different schools that I'll say that focuses on those things. So we've had to basically re-enroll a child into a different school just to keep them engaged and stimulated.
Absolutely. And you all, that was a wonderful overview of just how you all are encouraging these students to stay focused and pursue something that they may not have naturally wanted to pursue. STEM careers, you know, especially with American kids, I mean, for whatever reason, and we'll get into this in a minute, they're just not interested. And we have to do all of these techniques, all of these things that you just mentioned, Yohance, and really getting them to remain encouraged and stay focused in that space, through, as you said, providing them various technologies that they probably don't have access to. And then also really just putting them in a completely different environment where they're immersed in that space. That's awesome. Do you all also work with organizations that provide financial assistance in helping these kids go to schools?
We have, and we do. It's a lot of time it's case by case. So it just all depends on if if this organization has a grant or if they are willing to accept, we would say pro bono cases. So it just all depends. Sometimes it's insurance based, and sometimes it's out of pocket. But we try to keep those costs very minimal to the families. So we try to look for grants. We try to look for things that will, other means of having the organization, or having the child financed through whatever program. So it's case by case.
Absolutely. But that opportunity, once it presents itself, you all, as you said,
We jump on it.
you jump on it. It's one of those things where it's life or death. And
Yeah.
if, you know, I can only imagine if you all don't jump on it, then, you know, at times a student can truly, that's the decision factor. You know, students not being able to have the finances and the resources to attend school, to continue to pursue these STEM education. So that is awesome. And let's go a little deeper too. I want to understand from you all's daily observation of some of the students that maybe you all have had personal connections or contact with, but if you could share a time that was most impactful where you saw a student maybe not as interested in pursuing a STEM career, and then maybe you all assisting them and providing them some additional resources, and now where's that student and what is it looking like for their future?
You want me to go?
Go ahead. I know you got about 5.
A bunch of stuff. Hey, share a couple of
My most, I'll say, fulfilling encounter was years ago. I was placed at a particular school, and I had this young man, had long dreadlocks. He was never in class. A lot of times as probation officers, what are the things we would do? We would walk the halls just to make sure that our students, and not just our students, but students in general, were where they're supposed to be. And so this young man was in the hall more than I was. And so we had so many issues running in with he and me, him and his mom. They didn't get along. And I was always encouraging him to attend class, go to class, go to class, go to class. And so I stayed on him. And so he got off probation and we kind of lost touch. Well, about almost maybe a year and a half ago, it was in December. I remember it was in December. He came up to the office. They said, someone's here to see you. And I said, I don't have any appointments today. So, you know, who is it? And he stood at my door and I looked and I was just like, who are you? And so he told me who he was. And as soon as he said his name, I was like, I know exactly who you are. He had cut off his dreadlocks, so he looked a little different. And it's been years since I've seen him. And he told me, it was in December, he said, I'm graduating from college in May with a degree in engineering, electrical engineering. And I would like for you to be there. And so I talked to Chief Dean. I got up in May, I think it was like May 16th. Got up early that morning. He went to Benedict College. I drove to Benedict College. and I went to his graduation. And when he came out of the gate, when they processioned out of the gate, the first person he saw was me, and he was just like, "I can't believe you came." I said, "Well, you shocked me from where I knew you were in high school to where you are now, and you graduated with honors. So it was no question I was going to be here." So that was the most impactful thing now. And he's now, he graduated in May, so it was a little over a year ago, with honors. He enrolled into the military. So he's an officer in the military in electrical engineering. And it was funny because about a month ago, I guess because of COVID and all of the stuff that they were going through in the military, that we lost contact. But he texted me about a month ago and said, "I'm just checking in. I'm doing fine. I'm just checking in." And he gave me his additional new contact information. So we kind of keep in contact. So that was the most impactful thing. And it falls right along the lines of your program, the STEM program, because he is an electrical engineer in the military now. So so he's doing well. He's doing well. And I'm very proud of him. I mean, that was I felt like a proud parent.
Absolutely.
And one of the things he said, he said, "I remember you always telling me to go to class." And he said, one day it just clicked. I just got it together.
I know he remembered that one. Go to class. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow. We need to meet this gentleman. That's awesome. Wow, wow. What about you, Chief Dean?
Oh my goodness. Just working, I guess you could say, with drug court, because it's so involved, and we're in those kids' lives pretty much 24/7, all day, every day. And like I say, we're assessing them, we're seeing what they like, what they enjoy. But we've had many kids, I would say, since 2003, when we started drug court, that, they graduate, they do get off the drugs, they do go into careers. We also had one that got his GED. At that moment, a lot of times the military wasn't still accepting the GED, but this particular kid worked really hard along with the program, and he did get in his GED and got into the military, and also got into a career of math and science. And these are things that we knew that the kid had it in him, but you just never know until they actually go out there and do it on their own, when they make their mind up. So we've had many of those stories. I'm not going to sit here and say, look, they all went into a STEM type, career, but success is success for us if we can get them redirected. But once we find out what they like and what they enjoy, we go in that direction. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you all feel so rewarded every day.
Well, like Yohance, I mean, the thing is, sometimes when they come back and see me, it makes me feel really old, because
Me too. I can officially say that.
because you're having them when they're 16, and then I have one standing in my door, and he's like 29, 30 years old. He's like, "I'm just stopping by. I wanted you to meet my kids." So we have those type stories. So yes, ultimately in the end, we know we can't help every kid, but those that we truly impact, they come back. They do stay in touch, and they let us know what's going on. So we can say, yeah.
Well, I could definitely sit on here and go deeper with you all and find out more of these amazing stories about how you all are helping to change lives. Thank you all so much for giving us some information. We talked about 2 programs that support STEM education with the DeKalb County Juvenile Court System, one being the Commitment Alternative Program, and then the second being the Drug Court Program. We also discussed some ways that you all are encouraging students. And I say some, and I mean some, because you all have a plethora of ways you all are encouraging these students. One, being creative and keeping the kids stimulated, assisting them in providing resources, especially with these technology resources that these students may or may not have access to. And then also just overall thinking outside of the box. And there's no does not exist in you all's language. And I think that that is fantastic. And then finally, we discussed some personal stories where you all were able to be most impacted and fulfilled in seeing these encounters with the youth, with these kids, and encouraging them to continue and pursue a career in STEM, but just overall success in their lives and continuing to pursue their education or whatever their passions are. That is amazing. I'm so inspired from the stories that you all have shared. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Again, we're going to talk about the youth challenges overall. How do we overcome those challenges? And then we're going to talk about, well, how can we support DeKalb County Juvenile Court System in even overcoming some challenges you all may have in assisting the youth?
For the, I guess for the officers, a lot of time the challenge becomes the gap sometimes between the kid and the parent, and trying to bring all those folks and the family back together, and also getting them to understand that we're not the enemy at times, that we are there to assist, we're there to help, we're there to provide resources, whatever those resources may be. And I think a lot of times the families just need somebody to listen. But I'm not going to sit here and say that there's not burnout a lot of times, because, you know, we're dealing with a lot of families with a lot of different challenges and a lot of different personalities and behaviors going on. So that can weigh a little heavy on the staff too. So, you know, there comes a time when they do need to do a self-check with themselves and just kind of redirect that. But honestly, once we get in there and figure out what the issues may be, and we connect the kid, the parent, with the school, with the community, whatever community partner that needs to be, we tend to, you know, be able to manage and supervise those cases pretty well. Yohance, you can chime in if.
Sometimes the challenges is the lack of, and also, and I'll also add to that is the challenges of not knowing. We deal with, when I say the lack of, well, I'll say the not knowing piece first. There are a lot of times when we're dealing with families that just simply don't know certain things that we take for granted at times and think is just common knowledge, but they just don't know. So a lot of times as probation officers, we have to be that advocate. So it's not, no, I'm not the as Chief Dean said, the enemy. No, I'm actually here trying to help you. So I have to advocate for you at the school, in the community, and even at court. So because we see the lives and the daily lives of these children, we have to, one, meet them where they are, but realizing as we learn more about the families that there's certain things that the parents don't know. So if something happens to the child, let's just say at the school, where the parent would just take it at face value and just be like, this happened, and we as the probation officer and as the advocate, sometimes we have to say, no, that happened, but there is an answer to this problem. You just don't have to take it at face value. There are different ways and levels and methods that we can use to try to redirect whatever happened. And that includes, as I stated earlier, with even enrolling a child into a different program, because we realize that this program right here is not necessarily meeting the needs. And it's sometimes doing more harm than good. And it's not harm in the sense of harming the child, but it's just not fostering growth for the child in the education realm. And that bleeds over into behavioral issues. So it's like, no, you have it. There are schools, there are programs, there are different things that are available that that you can look into. So the old saying goes, it's more than one way to skin a cat. So it's more than one way to educate a child. It's more than one way and a lot of times the parents only see that one way. So we as the community advocates, we have to say, look, it's more than one way. So those are the challenges at times where it's just like we have to sometimes even walk. We have a few probation officers. Actually, all of the probation officers are very diligent with um, finding these different community resources and things, and will basically hand walk the process with the families. So sometimes those are the challenges. It's just the families they just don't know.
Interesting. And I'm glad we're having this opportunity to discuss some of these challenges that the court system faces, because I think a lot of the times the focus is more on, what is the community facing as a challenge? And I think it needs to be an equal amount of attention in both spaces. And that's how the change will occur within the community is, how can the community assist you all? And in turn, by you all doing what you do on the daily anyways, how DeKalb County court system can assist the community. So we're back. We have Ms. Shunda Dean, the Chief Probation Officer, and Mr. Yohance Benton, the Principal Probation Officer with DeKalb County Juvenile Court System, the Probation Division. In this section, we want to talk about the challenges. We want to get deep. We want to understand specifically what are the youth struggling with, not just with education, but overall, how you all work with them daily. What are some of these challenges?
You're talking about poverty. You're talking about, I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm telling honestly, from one week to the next, we are dealing with a family that is having that issue. And we're trying to connect them with a community resource, whether it's a church, whether it's the mosque, whether it's just the YMCA, whatever it is, and trying to find food. So we're directing them to food banks literally weekly. We are connecting with the community homelessness. What can we do to make sure this family is not evicted in the midst of COVID? We're dealing with that, along with the stress of being in the house every day, all day. So with some of them, that's stressful too within itself. The issue now with them being educated at home, the issue with the parents trying to be the counselor, the teacher, the mother, all of that, and trying to make sure that everybody's needs are met. So that's what we're dealing with a lot of now. Not that we weren't dealing with the homelessness then, but it seemed to be more prevalent now with folks are concerned about where they're going to stay. The POs are on the phones all day. I know because they're calling, we're talking all day. When there are crisis situations, we're on the phone, we're on conference calls with the parents, with the school, whatever the situation is, with treatment. So we're trying to do a lot of this stuff, new age, new ways, when you're talking about technology. So everything's been done just how we're doing it right now, or on the phone. But I will say this, my officers are so dedicated to what they do. They still do home visits, respectfully, 6 feet apart, and making sure that they're protecting themselves. But because sometimes they want to just put their eyes on the kids, they want to put their eyes on the family, they will drive by those homes and just say, hey, I'm just checking, and speak with them at a distance and just saying, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. But now those are a lot of the things we're dealing with. I know with Yohance's caseload, he deals with a lot of defects families. So he's dealing from that end of it as well, trying to make sure that the families are getting the services that they need, whether it's on the dependency side, not necessarily delinquent. So a lot of that's going on. I was on the phone, I know, for a good hour one day because the parent was a little stressed, a little stressed. And honestly, he just needed to talk. He just really wanted to talk and get it all out. Then we come back and redirect and say, okay, now this is what I can do for you. I just need you to work through this with us. Benton, you want to tie it off?
Challenges. I wrote down two different things that came to mind. One of the challenges, and Chief Dean touched on this briefly, but environment. And reason why I say, and it's not necessarily, well, it's still prevalent now because of COVID, but it was more prevalent, I would say. Well, actually, it's more prevalent now. But what happens is we as probation officers try to redirect behavior. And once, if the child is in front of me, the behavior a lot of times is corrected. But once they're placed back into the environment where the behavior was not as what we as acceptable, that's a force that we have to fight against. So it's fighting against that force where when they're in front of me, the behavior is acceptable. But when they're in a different environment, that environment could be home, it could be school, it could be community. So we have to fight against that as what. So it's the environment that we have to fight against. That's why a lot of times if you notice, a lot of times we say the family. We don't just say the child, because we have to affect the environment where that child is. And so if we can't positively affect I say the environment, then that makes our job a lot harder. So a lot of times we have to put in those measures in place that not only help the child, but it helps the family. And if it helps the family, and the other thing that I wrote down is the mindset. So if we can redirect the environment and the mindset, we can win a child. And that's one of the things that we focus on doing, is redirecting the child, the mindset, the environment. Because like I stated, once they're turned loose, so to speak, we have to make sure that mindset is correct. We have to make sure that environment is correct. And so those are the challenges that we face a lot. But with us facing those challenges, we try to put things in place that help the family, so they can identify certain behavior and certain triggers, so they know how to redirect that mindset, and everything will be a lot better. So that's one of the things that we the challenges that we face.
Absolutely. And I agree. The environment and mindset plays such a huge part in influencing, what that child decides to do on the day to day, or whatever their actions are day to day. How does the environment and mindset then translate into their behavior and what they produce at school?
Well, a lot of times it carries over. So if I'll tell you this, a lot of times it's very obvious if we as a probation officer hadn't had proper contact with that child. Because if we've had proper contact with that child, the behavior is minimalized. But if they haven't seen us, then it's just, I get to do whatever I want to do. And so that's why we're very instrumental in trying to make sure we make contact with our families. And of course, we have things in place to make sure we do that, but we have to make sure that even just on a regular probation officer, I'm here to service the family mindset, we have to make sure that because that makes our job a lot harder. If I can correct this behavior this day, and I'm not consistent on knocking on that door of correction, then every time I see them, I'm starting at square one. But if I'm constantly, hey, go to class, like I stated earlier, go to class. If I can get you in that environment of class, That's the first I've won the first battle. And then after I get you in that environment of class or in an environment of, okay, you're in class. Now, all right, let's produce some work. So where we were making F's because we're not in class, now let's just say we're making F's, but we're in class. Then we're going to make some D's. Then we're going to make some C's. And so we try to build or build on what we started on the foundation is what I was trying to say. So we try to build on the foundation. So we get one level, we go to the next level, and we go to the next level. And that's how we produce the stars that we see. And here again, we can't save everyone, but we try.
Absolutely.
And so we have to be consistent with our efforts in, okay, we have you in class, we have you in counseling, we have the family involved. So we try to put all of those things in place to ward off a lot of those challenges.
Absolutely. Chief Dean, do you have anything to add to that and how the environment and a child's mindset affects their production at work, production at school?
I think honestly, Yohance has probably hit it on the head pretty much, because look, they're in those schools every single day when we were in the schools. Some of them are in the school right now. Just staying in contact, just staying visible. But he is definitely on point. We have to be persistent, consistent, and visible in everything that we do. We have to, it's just repetition. It's just like us reading that book and studying it, and studying for that test, studying for that exam, and trying to retain all of that information. We just have to be very consistent with the court order, making sure they're compliant with the court order, but also making sure that they have the resources they need to survive in the community and in the home. So it is a mindset thing, but repetition does help, which is what we tend to do. Granted, yes, we're repeating the same thing, but we also learned, all three of us, as we were in school, what tools did we use to graduate school, to be successful, to finish? We knew we needed to study. We knew we needed to be around friends that were putting positive things in our head and in our minds. So whether that's your pastor, whether that's your sister, your brother, your uncle, your auntie, your grandmother, or whoever it is. And we also try to tap into those folk as well to make it a whole family, if we can. You know, if the grandmother or the mother is not there, okay, where's your grandmother? Or where's your oldest sister? We don't just accept the child coming in, hey, no, we want somebody here to support you, no matter who that is. And that's what we try to build.
That's wonderful. It sounds like repetition is the technique that you all teach and want your kids to learn. That's something that they have to practice. And once they practice it and it's ingrained in them, then they've obtained that level of skill that they'll be able to transfer over into life. They'll be able to repeat these good behaviors into whatever it is that they put their minds to. And I think that is wonderful, that you all have such amazing POs to be able to, one, have the patience, to have the focus, to have the skill set to implement all of these skills, not just that repetition, but all the skills. That is amazing. Thank you all so much for overall this interview. I just have one more question. I think our listeners would want to know if you all can cite where we can receive more information about the DeKalb County Juvenile Court System.
We do have a court website, and that is DeKalbJuvenileCourt.org. That is DeKalbJuvenileCourt.org. And everything's been updated. I know that it's still working on it, but definitely you have a list of resources and contact information there.
Wonderful. And are there any other websites, organizations, companies, well, just overall resources that can assist families and youth that are listening in some of these challenges that we discussed today?
I can list a few of the organizations that we work with on the counseling realm. Um, One of the organizations, we have Community Solutions, and they deal with a lot of times with the MST, which is multi-systemic therapy, and FFT, which is family functional therapy. We have Family Ties, which is another um, counseling department that we use. We have Children and Teenagers Foundation and Positive Growth. And all of those are community resources that provide counseling to not only just the youth, but the families as well.
That's wonderful. We discussed some really heavy challenges that you all see these kids and their families facing day to day. Some of them being behavioral issues, poverty, students saying, where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat today, tonight? Also evictions, specifically during COVID, during this time, has been, I'm sure that's, increased and been even more difficult for the families. Parents also wearing multiple hats, being the counselor, also having to provide and do a multitude of things to support and try to support their kids. Also, crisis situations, you all handle those on the day-to-day with the kids and their families. And then challenges of the child's environment and mindset. Now, some of the ways that we could overcome, or that you all are assisting in overcoming these challenges, is one, understanding that there's more than one way to aid a child. You all understand that and want to educate the families that there's more than one way, and where you all are more than willing to assist in providing those additional resources and ways to help their kids. Also, you all connect with lots of the community resources that we've kind of touched on throughout this entire episode, some being the YMCA, a mosque, food banks, community homelessness centers, and then also assisting both the delinquent and the dependency sides at the DeKalb County court systems. And then I think, to me, one of the most important things that we discussed was discussing the challenges that you all face internally within the court system, and how the community, how families could assist in overcoming some of the challenges that you all are facing. And one, Chief Dean, I think you hit on it, understanding that there's a gap between the kids and their parents. And then also trying to inform and get the students, the kids, the families to understand that you all are not the enemy. You're here to help in any way that you all can. Also, that you all are able to manage cases once you can truly understand the need. I think, Mr. Benton, you discussed how sometimes one of the challenges is just not knowing. And that, I can understand, can be frustrating. You may think that it's one thing, but that's still not the true depth of the need. But once you do find and discover that need, then you're able to better assist and provide the resources that you can. And then the last thing, I love that you said this, Chief Dean, you said POs have to be persistent, consistent, and visible. And the fact that you all are still working just as hard as you ever have done, especially during COVID, some POs respectfully are still doing home visits, some are still inside of the schools. That's amazing. That to me screams that these POs are passionate and that they're proud of the work that they do, and that they truly have a heart in wanting to help and assist these kids in living a better life. Is there any last words that you all want to say before we wrap up this episode?
I think you just tied it off with a bow.
That sounds good to me. Well, I appreciate you guys, and I'm looking forward to having you guys come back on another episode in the future. You guys continue to do the work that you're doing, and we appreciate you all for doing the work that you're doing in DeKalb County. You all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.